Loma's hands trembled as she served drinks at her anniversary grand celebration. She thought she had buried her painful past forever. But when her husband's powerful boss walked in and locked eyes with her, the room's air changed. Because he knew every dark secret her new family must never find out, and in front of everyone, he was about to speak. Loma came from a small, poor village called Batura. Life there was hard, and she carried many painful memories. But everything changed when she married Tobin, a kind man from the rich and powerful Darrow family. To everyone outside, it looked like Loma was now living a dream life. Big houses, fancy clothes, and respect. But deep inside, Loma knew her peace was fragile, like thin glass that could break any time. Every day, she worked hard to make her new family happy. She cooked, cleaned, and smiled, even when her heart was heavy. Her in-laws, especially Tobin's mother and sisters, never missed a chance to remind her that she was not really one of them. They looked down on her because of her poor background, calling her names behind her back and making her feel small. Loma never answered back. She feared that if they ever found out about the dark secrets from her past, they would throw her out without thinking twice. So she kept her head low, swallowed her pain, and did everything they asked, just to keep her place in the family. Tobin, her husband, was the only one who treated her with love and kindness. He didn't care about where she came from, and that gave her little moments of comfort. But even with Tobin's support, Loma lived every day in fear, walking on eggshells, praying that her old life would never come back to haunt her. She thought she had left her past far behind in Batura, but little did she know, the peace she had built so carefully was about to shatter in the most shocking way. The Darrow family was buzzing with excitement. They were planning a big anniversary party to celebrate 25 years of wealth, power, and family pride. It was going to be the biggest event of the year, with important guests coming from everywhere, politicians, business owners, and even Tobin's new boss, a man everyone in town respected and feared. The house turned into a busy place, with people decorating, cooks preparing fancy meals, and workers setting up golden chairs and shining lights. Everyone had a role to play, but for Loma, the pressure was even heavier. Her mother-in-law called her aside and said in a cold voice, "Loma, this is an important day. Don't embarrass us. Behave yourself, smile, and stay quiet." Loma nodded quickly, her heart beating fast. She knew how much the Darrow family cared about their image. One wrong step, one little mistake, and they would blame her for bringing shame. As the days passed and the party got closer, Loma felt more and more uneasy. Her hands would shake while she folded the silk napkin, and her stomach felt tight like a knot. She couldn't understand why she was feeling this way. Everything looked perfect from the outside, the music, the food, the laughter. But deep inside, Loma's heart whispered that something was wrong, something she couldn't see yet. At night, when everyone else was sleeping, she sat by the window and stared at the dark sky, trying to calm her racing thoughts. She told herself it was just the stress of the big event, but no matter how much she tried, the feeling only grew stronger. It was like a shadow creeping closer, waiting to jump out. The more the preparations went on, the more guests confirmed they were coming, the heavier Loma's chest felt. And when she heard that Tobin's new boss would attend in person, her heart skipped a beat. She didn't know why, but her body reacted like it knew a storm was coming. Loma forced a smile in front of everyone, but inside, fear quietly wrapped itself around her, and she had no idea that this party, meant to celebrate the Darrow family, would be the very moment her world would start to crack wide open. The party was in full swing. Laughter filled the air, music played loudly, and the Darrow family smiled proudly as they welcomed their high-class guests. Everyone stood taller when they heard the sound of expensive cars pulling up at the gate. Tobin's boss had arrived. The room fell silent as Mr. Ease stepped in. He was a tall man, dressed in a sharp black suit, and his presence felt heavy like a storm cloud. People moved aside to greet him with respect. Even the proud Darrow family looked nervous in front of him, because they knew his power in the business world. But as Easy walked further into the room, his eyes scanned the crowd, and then they landed on Loma. In that moment, everything inside Loma collapsed. Her heart stopped. Her body turned cold. She couldn't breathe. Easy's sharp eyes narrowed as he stared straight at her, but he didn't say a word. His lips curled into a small, knowing smile, And that alone was enough to send shivers down Loma's spine, because Ease was not just Tobin's boss. He was her ex, the man from her dark past, the one who almost destroyed her life back in Batura. He was the man she had run away from, the reason she changed her name, and the reason she buried her past so deep. And now, here he was, standing right in front of her, in her new life, at her family's grand party. Loma's hands trembled as she clutched the tray she was holding. She wanted to disappear, to melt into the floor, but she couldn't move. She stood frozen, trapped in fear. Easy's eyes told her everything. He remembered her, and he knew every secret she had worked so hard to hide. The room was still loud with music and laughter, but for Loma, it felt like everything had gone silent. Only the pounding of her heart echoed in her ears. She knew, deep in her soul, that this man's arrival was not by chance. And though he hadn't spoken yet, she could feel it. He was going to turn her world upside down. Years ago, before Loma became the respected wife of Tobin Darrow, her life was full of pain and shame. Back then, she wasn't even called Loma. She was just a poor village girl from Batura, struggling to survive. And that was when Easy came into her life. At first, he made her feel special, like she was the only woman in the world. He promised her love, comfort, and a better future. But very quickly, those sweet words turned into poison. Easy controlled her every move. He made her cut ties with her family and friends. He shouted at her, humiliated her, and sometimes even raised his hand against her. He dragged her into dirty dealings, using her to cover his own shameful acts. Loma, young and afraid, felt trapped in a cage she couldn't escape. There were nights she cried until morning, wondering if her life would ever change. Ezza almost destroyed her. He almost pushed her to the point where she thought there was no way out. But one day, she found the courage to run. She left everything behind, her name, her home, her old life. She escaped from Batura and started fresh in a new city, calling herself Loma. She worked hard, cleaned houses, and slowly built a new path. When she met Tobin, a kind man who saw her worth, she thought it was a blessing. She vowed never to tell him about her past. She wanted to protect her new life, to bury those dark memories where no one could find them. For years, Loma lived in peace, always careful, always watching her back, but believing she had finally left her pain behind. She thought Ezra was gone forever, just a bad dream from her old life. But now, as she stood frozen at the Darrow family party and saw Easy's cold eyes staring back at her, she knew the truth. Fate had dragged her past right into her present. The man who almost destroyed her was now her husband's powerful boss. And deep inside, Loma felt her whole world start to crack. The secrets she had hidden so well were now dangerously close to being exposed. Dinner was served in the grand hall, with golden plates shining and the smell of rich food filling the air. Everyone laughed and chatted, but Loma could not taste the food on her tongue. She sat stiffly beside her husband, Tobin, trying to keep a calm face. But across the table sat Ise, his sharp eyes fixed on her like a hunter watching his prey. His lips curled into a smile, but it was not friendly. It was the smile of a man who knew too much. As the guests raised their glasses to toast, Ise spoke in a smooth voice that sent chills down Loma's spine. "It's funny," he said, looking straight at her, "how people can change their names and their faces, but the past always finds them." The words hung heavy in the air, but no one understood. The family laughed lightly, thinking it was just a joke, but Loma's hands trembled so hard she nearly dropped her glass. Every few minutes, Ez dropped more hints. He spoke about Batura, her hometown, though no one else at the table knew Loma came from there. He joked about old debts, about people running away from their past mistakes. With each word, Loma's heart beat faster. Sweat gathered on her back, and her face turned pale. She could feel her mother-in-law's sharp eyes watching her, sensing something was wrong. But they all assumed Loma was just being her usual shy and nervous self. Loma wanted to stand up and run, but her legs felt like stone. She knew what Ezzy was doing. He was playing a wicked game, testing how far he could push her before she broke, and she could see it in his cold eyes. He was enjoying every second of it. She realized with growing fear that at any moment he could drop the final blow and expose everything in front of her husband and his powerful family, her secret past, The lies she told, the shame she buried deep, it could all come crashing down tonight. And there was nothing she could do to stop it, except pray that Ease would not go further. But deep inside, she knew this storm was only just beginning. After dinner, when the guests were busy laughing and dancing, Loma quietly slipped away to catch her breath. Her heart was racing, her hands still shaking from Ease's cruel hints. But before she could calm down, she felt a shadow behind her. She turned, and there he was, Easy. His face was cold, his eyes dark with power. He blocked her path, and she knew there was no escape now. With a sly smile, Easy leaned close and whispered words that made her knees weak. Loma, or should I call you by your real name? He hissed. Her breath caught in her throat. You thought you could run from me forever? Number now. You will do exactly what I say. Loma's voice was barely a whisper. Please don't destroy my life. But Isa only chuckled, enjoying her fear. It's simple, he said. Your husband, Tobin, he's a good man, but I want him to agree to a business deal. It's dirty, illegal, but I need his name on it. You will make him say yes. Or else, his eyes flashed with evil. I will tell everyone the truth about you, about your old debts, the scandals, your real past. Your marriage will end. Your in-laws will throw you out like trash. Loma felt the walls closing in. Her chest was tight, and tears filled her eyes. She remembered the years she spent building this new life, working hard, hiding her scars, trying to be the perfect wife. All of it now hung by a thin thread. One word from Ise, and everything would shatter. She looked up at him, her voice shaking. Why are you doing this? Eze sneered. Because I can, and because you owe me. You thought you escaped, but now you'll pay. Loma's heart broke in that moment. She faced an impossible choice. Betray the man who loved and trusted her, or lose everything she built. If she pushed Tobin into this dirty deal, he might get into trouble. But if she refused, her darkest secrets would be exposed, and her whole world would crumble. She stood frozen, tears spilling down her cheeks, as Ise gave her a wicked smile and walked away, leaving her drowning in fear and confusion. The storm had fully arrived, and Loma had no idea how to survive it. Loma couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, her mind racing with thoughts of what Ise had said earlier. His words kept echoing in her head, and the fear of losing everything overwhelmed her. She tried to convince herself it was just a bad dream, but she couldn't shake the reality of what she was facing. The clock ticked slowly into the night, and she found herself sitting on the edge of the bed, tears streaming down her face. Memories of her past came flooding back. Memories of Ise's manipulation, the way he had controlled her life, made her feel small and powerless. She remembered the lies, the broken promises, and the humiliation he had put her through. Every cruel word he had ever said felt like a weight on her chest, suffocating her. For a moment, she wanted to give in, to let the darkness swallow her whole, to forget about the life she had worked so hard to build. But then something inside her snapped. She remembered the woman she used to be, the one who fought to escape that toxic relationship, the one who had changed her name, her life, everything. She had come so far. She wasn't the same person anymore. Loma wiped her tears away and stood up, her legs trembling but strong. It was time to face her fears. She had kept her secrets hidden for so long, but now she couldn't hide anymore. She had to tell Tobin everything, the truth about her past, about Ise and the blackmail. She couldn't let Ise control her life again. As she walked to the window, she stared out into the night, feeling the weight of the decision on her shoulders. Her heart pounded in her chest, but she felt a fire inside her that she hadn't felt in years. She was done being afraid. She was done hiding. Loma took a deep breath and made up her mind. She would confront her past, and she would confront her husband. It wouldn't be easy, but she was ready to fight. She wasn't going to let Ise destroy everything she had worked for. She wasn't going to let him win. Tomorrow she would tell Tobin everything, risking it all to finally take control of her own life. She wasn't going to be a victim anymore. It was time to fight back. The second day of the anniversary celebration had arrived, and Loma could feel the tension building in the air. She had made up her mind. Today was the day she would confront her past. No more hiding, no more running. The elegant ballroom was filled with the who's who of the city, but for Loma, it felt like she was standing in front of a jury. Her husband, Tobin, stood beside her, blissfully unaware of the storm that was about to unfold. As everyone gathered around for the speeches, Loma took a deep breath and stepped forward. She could hear her heart pounding in her ears, but she didn't hesitate. The room fell quiet, every eye on her, every ear listening. Loma started with her story, speaking calmly, but with unwavering strength. She told them how she had come from nothing, a small town, and how she had escaped a toxic past. She spoke of Eze, her ex, the man who had almost destroyed her life. She shared how he had controlled her, manipulated her, and how she had run from that dark chapter, changing her name and leaving it all behind. But now, he was here, threatening to expose everything. The room was dead silent as Loma paused, glancing at her husband, who looked as though the world had just crumbled around him. His face was pale, his jaw clenched, but he didn't interrupt. Loma continued, her voice steady but full of emotion, telling the room how Izzy had blackmailed her, using their past to threaten her new life. Izzy, now sweating with panic, tried to twist the story, blur the truth with his lies, but Loma was ready. She pulled out old letters, photos, and even evidence of the abuse she had suffered. The proof was undeniable. She had kept everything all these years, knowing this day might come. Ez's face flushed with anger as he saw his lies unraveling in front of everyone. He tried to protest, but the damage was done. Loma had exposed him for the manipulator he was, and there was no turning back now. The room was buzzing with shock, and Tobin, who had believed in his boss, could only stand there, speechless. The truth was out, and there was no hiding from it. The shock from Loma's revelation still hung in the air, but the most dramatic moment was yet to come. Tobin, his face a mix of disbelief and anger, turned to Eze. His hands were shaking, and his voice, though low, carried the weight of years of trust betrayed. He stepped forward, in front of the entire room, and with authority that shocked everyone, he confronted Eze. "How could you?" Tobin demanded, his voice cracking with hurt. "How could you use her like that? All these years you've pretended to be the perfect boss, and you're nothing but a fraud." Eze, caught in the web of his lies, stammered, trying to defend himself, but the damage was done. Tobin's words echoed in the room, and the whispers began. Eze's powerful position in the company started to crumble as the room filled with murmurs of disbelief. People who had once idolized him now looked at him with contempt. Tobin's confrontation wasn't just a personal attack, it was the beginning of Easy's public downfall. Within minutes, the company announced Easy's suspension, pending further investigation. His reign of manipulation was over. As Eze was escorted out of the celebration, the Darrow family was left standing in stunned silence. They had always looked down on Loma, never fully accepting her because of her past. But in that moment, their pride turned to shame. They saw the courage she had shown, standing up to the man who had controlled her life for so long. One by one, they started to approach her, their expressions changing from judgment to respect. Tobin, still grappling with the shock, finally reached out to Loma, his eyes filled with regret, but his voice was soft as he whispered, "I'm so sorry." He took her hand, showing her the support he should have given her long ago. The rest of the Darrow family followed, acknowledging her strength and bravery. The room, which had once felt like a prison to Loma, now felt like a place of redemption. Outside, the community had caught wind of what happened. People began to rally around Loma, praising her for breaking free from her painful past and standing up for herself. She had been the silent victim for so long, but now she was the woman who had fought for her truth, and everyone saw that. After the chaos of the family function, Loma's life began to shift in ways she never imagined. Her story of survival, of finding strength in her darkest moments, became a beacon of hope to countless women. Invitations began flooding in for her to speak at women's gatherings, where she shared her journey of overcoming the abuse she had suffered. Every time she spoke, her voice grew louder, more powerful, reaching women who were still trapped in silence. They listened to her words with rapt attention, seeing in her the courage they needed to find in themselves. But Loma didn't stop there. Her pain, once something she wished to bury forever, became the foundation of something far greater than she ever thought possible. She started her own foundation dedicated to helping women escape toxic situations. offering them not just resources, but also the strength and support they needed to rebuild their lives. Her foundation became a safe haven for those who felt voiceless, just like she once did. Through this new purpose, Loma discovered that the pain she had lived through could become a source of power for others. The once weak woman who had been afraid to speak now stood tall as a leader, guiding women toward freedom and healing. The women who had been too afraid to speak up saw Loma as a symbol of their own potential to break free. And in the final moments of her journey, Loma stood alone in her room, the past behind her. She held up a stack of old photos, pictures of her life before everything changed, memories that once filled her with shame. With a determined smile, she tore them up, letting the pieces fall to the floor. The old Loma was gone. She was free, truly free, in a way she had never known before. She looked up, her eyes glistening with tears of triumph. She had found her voice, and now she would make sure no woman ever felt silenced again.